Not even a month after Iran and Israel signed a fragile ceasefire, a new rocket took off into the sky. However, this wasn't a ballistic missile coming down on a target, at least not officially. It was a space launch vehicle, the fourth of its kind, rising from Iranian soil with stunning velocity and almost no prep time. Since 2020, these rockets have been used to place military satellites into orbit, but this carried no satellite. Iranian officials insisted it was a routine test of new technologies. However, the timing, secrecy, and unusual flight profile immediately raised suspicions among Western officials. It may not be a weapon yet, but there's no guarantee it will stay that way. From June 13th to 24th, 2025, Iranian and Israeli forces carried out an aerial war of precision strikes that shattered strategic targets and scorched military assets through drone strikes, ballistic missiles, and kamikaze drones. According to reports from the Israel Defense Forces, more than 200 missile launchers were destroyed, along with 4 high-ranking Iranian commanders, nearly a dozen nuclear scientists, and an aerial refueling aircraft stationed over 1,490 miles from Israeli borders. This strike is now believed to be the farthest precision kill in the history of Israeli air power. However, the war's true turning point came on June 22nd, when U.S. President Donald Trump authorized the deployment of 14 30,000-pound GBU-57AB bunker busters, each one guided by stealth B-2 Spirit bombers, targeting Iran's most fortified nuclear facilities at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. Following the attack, President Trump declared, quote, "The strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace." Within 48 hours, Iran accepted a ceasefire, and while broken tensions and reported missile strikes continued in the days that followed, the full-scale war came to an abrupt halt by the end of June, a moment hailed by some as a victory for the U.S. and Israel. However, the most sought-after result of the conflict has still not been reached, forcing Iran to rewrite the rules of its nuclear program, limiting its ability to create weapons of mass destruction. Now, barely a month after the ceasefire entered into effect, the hope of achieving this seems further away, as a new missile launch on Iranian grounds seems to signal that Tehran may not be finished with this fight just yet. On July 21st, 2025, reports confirmed that Iranian scientists had carried out a new test of the Cassad space launch vehicle. The rocket had previously been launched 3 times since 2020, in previous missions reportedly carrying capsules filled with live animals, believed to be trial runs for Iran's first human spaceflight. More notably, Cassad has also been used to deploy Iran's newer military reconnaissance satellites into low Earth orbit, satellites that, while technically limited to Earth imaging, have sparked controversy from the moment they were deployed. Within days of its first launch in 2020, the Noor satellite reportedly began capturing images of U.S. airbases across the Middle East. While the reports were not confirmed, nor considered immediately lethal, the new satellite gave Iran, at the very least, the perception of a new layer in its surveillance and targeting capabilities. However, it wasn't the launch of yet another Noor satellite that worried observers during this recent launch, but rather the fact that for the first time, there was no satellite release. Iranian sources claim that for this occasion, the purpose of the launch was to, quote, assess some emerging new technologies. That vague description, combined with the fact that the launch occurred just weeks after the U.S. bunker-busting strikes on Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, left Western defense officials deeply unsettled, trying to decipher what those new technologies are and what Iran is planning to use them for. One of the most unsettling aspects of the Cassad rocket is who controls it. Unlike Iran's official space program, the Cassad isn't operated by the Iranian Space Agency. Instead, it belongs to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Aerospace Force, a branch known for carrying out strategic aerial attacks and whose former commander was hit and eradicated by Israeli fire during the 12-day war that took place earlier in June. While the Iranian Space Agency rockets rely on traditional liquid fuel systems, the Cassad uses a hybrid fuel design, combining liquid and solid propellants, allowing for rapid launch capability, minimal preparation time, and covert deployment. If ever repurposed from a research platform to a weapons system, Cassad could transition from launch pad to airborne in minutes. The Cassad resembles an intercontinental ballistic missile so closely that when it was first tested in 2020, the rocket was widely criticized by Western governments for being a barely concealed weapons platform. At the time, American General John Hyten, former vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, warned, quote, "When you have a missile capable of going a very long way, it means that Iran has the ability once again to threaten their neighbors." Today, that sentiment has only grown louder. On July 22, 2025, Senator Tom Cotton communicated through social media, quote, "Iran's quote-unquote space program is nothing more than a ridiculous charade. Don't be fooled by their propaganda." It's not only the Cassad's unconventional fueling design that makes officials fear the worst. The rocket has just the right size to be mounted on a mobile transporter erector launcher, meaning it can be hidden, moved, and fired from virtually any stretch of road or desert. That kind of mobility gives Iran a first strike advantage, making it exponentially harder for satellites or surveillance networks to track and neutralize it before launch. Although President Trump and his allies continue to claim that Iran's nuclear enrichment sites have been, quote, "completely and totally obliterated," leaked intelligence suggests that only one of the 3 targets may have been fully destroyed, with Iran's nuclear program delayed by no more than a few months. If those leaks are accurate, and if the Cassad test was indeed more than just a space exercise, then Iran may be refining long-range strike capabilities right in the open, plotting revenge with a weapon more powerful, more mobile, and more unpredictable than anything it's ever fielded before. The worst part is that, if Iran were ever to fire it, it may not strike alone. Shortly before Iran was scheduled to sit down with European leaders to discuss the future of its nuclear program, Russia went on to launch a new Iranian satellite into space aboard a Soyuz rocket. Many viewed this as a statement from President Vladimir Putin, signaling Moscow's support for Tehran's aerospace ambitions, and perhaps to give Iran a better chance to emerge as the winning power in nuclear negotiations, an outcome that could greatly benefit Putin's own ambitions. During its war against Ukraine, Russia has reportedly fired experimental medium-range ballistic missiles, said to be capable of reaching hypersonic speeds and striking at distances over 1,200 miles. While not confirmed to carry nuclear payloads, analysts warn that the system's design mirrors those capable of doing so, and if Putin were to pair this cutting-edge missile platform with Iran's fast-approaching nuclear capabilities, the two powers could radically shift the balance of power across the Middle East. And Russia is not the only power interested in joining the party. Iran's cooperation with China has only deepened in recent months. Though Beijing insists it does not export weapons to active war zones, reports suggest a workaround is in place. China supplies Iran with critical missile components and air defense materials, while Tehran pays in crude oil, bypassing formal sanctions. If this collaboration was actually taking place, it could explain how just weeks after Israeli jets crippled several of Iran's air defense platforms, Tehran announced that damaged systems had been fully replaced and redeployed. The West is desperate to contain this accelerating threat, with officials warning Iran that if no new nuclear terms are agreed upon by August, a snapback of UN sanctions will be imminent. But Iran is not bowing down. Instead, Iranian leaders have threatened that if any sanctions were to take place, they'd respond by pushing their uranium enrichment to weapons-grade levels. Despite Iran's rapid escalation in weapons development, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi maintains the regime's ambitions are not centered on annihilating Israel or launching mass attacks against the United States and its allies. In a recent interview with Fox News, Araghchi declared, quote, "The Supreme Leader and other officials in Iran have always said that, quote, death to America is in fact death to the hegemonic policies of the United States, not to the people of the United States." But for many in Washington, this reassurance was not enough. U.S. intelligence officials keep citing Iran's growing arsenal of weapons and advanced enrichment capabilities as potential tools for a broader campaign. Some officials even fear that Tehran may seek revenge against President Donald Trump for the strike against their nuclear facilities at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, as well as for the 2020 U.S. strike that claimed the life of General Qasem Soleimani, head of Iran's Quds Force. Trump himself has responded to these concerns, claiming that he has left orders in place in case a future Iranian strike succeeds in taking him down. Speaking on the record, He ensured that if the Middle Eastern nation were to ever use their weapons for such an assault, an American counterstrike against Iran would quickly follow, ensuring, quote, "there won't be anything left."